So good morning, everyone, esteemed panelists, dear guests, dear friends, and welcome to today's event organized by Euractiv and co-hosted with FGEFA, the European Federation of Independent Distributors of Automotive Parts and Components. Today we are launching this event, or we are hosting this event called the Automotive Aftermarket, a cornerstone for Europe's industrial and mobility future, in which we're going to be talking about the automotive aftermarket and how does it fit within the Automotive Industrial Action Plan that the European Commission launched very recently. So the event could not come at a more timelier moment. We're going to be hearing from policymakers. We're also going to be hearing from independent aftermarket representatives. And it would be great also to hear from you, because we're going to have a lot of time for questions as well. So the way that this event is going to go today, we're going to start with some welcoming words from our hosts at FGEFA. Then we will take a look at some of the key findings of Roland Berger's study on the panorama of the independent aftermarket, and then we will dive deep into a panel discussion in which we are going to answer some of the key questions. So I'm delighted to be welcoming the first one of our speakers, the president of FGEFA, Mats Engberg. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I've been giving a handheld mic, so I hope you can. It's always a little tricky how close you should have it to. I get a feedback from this. So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, we have policymakers here from Commission, from Council. We have representatives from Parliament, and we have a lot of industry leaders. It is my extraordinary pleasure today to welcome you all to today's discussion, and I would like to also extend my thanks to Euractiv for co-hosting the event, and for all of you, both here physically and for those of you who joined online, to take the time to join and to participate in today's event. The automotive industry, and I think you can probably say that at all times, but I think even more today, we're experiencing an era of systemic transformation. We have technological advancements which are reshaping everything, basically, from vehicle components to connectivity, and creating a new paradigm, so to speak, in the automotive sector. And this is not only limited to the manufacturing. It has to do with everything from to driving to repair and maintenance, so the whole value chain from manufacturing the car to the aftermarket. We also see within the propulsion technology, you could call it, we have a strong push towards greener mobility, towards electrification. And all of this requires new skill sets and demands new tools and equipment for servicing the modern vehicles. Beyond that, and I think that it's impossible to have any event without mentioning the elephant in the room. We have huge geopolitical challenges at the moment, which evidently also impacts the automotive sector. Our sector, if we look at that, the independent automotive aftermarket, isn't just a sector that reacts to change. We're also driving change. We, as a representative of the sector, and in particular, of course, the distribution and wholesaling part of the sector, we're making significant investments every day, every year, in innovation, in sustainability, and in the digital transformation. This is why this event is so timely, and also why, as we will hear shortly from Roland Berger, the aftermarket panorama study will provide key insights into this transformation, and also into the societal impact of the automotive aftermarket. The fact is, there cannot be an increase in European competitiveness and industrial capability without taking into account the entire value chain. The independent aftermarket is core to the automotive industry, and for that reason, has to play a central part in shaping the future of the industry in all EU-led strategies. Despite, as we like to see it, our vital role in the sector, the independent aftermarket is often overlooked, unfortunately. That has to change, obviously. We are calling today on European policymakers from all strands from all branches of let's say government or commission, the council and parliament, to integrate and consider the full automotive ecosystem in order to make the Industrial Action Plan a success. Regulation, and this is also a very key point to make, regulation must keep pace with the technological and the market evolution, ensuring that competition and development of innovative products and services can continue also in the independent market. That is why, that is the way to safeguard our industry and also help to achieve a more competitive, sustainable, and European mobility service ecosystem. So, with these words, I would like to say thank you, and I look forward to the discussions of the day.
Thank you very much to Mats Engbeck for introducing us to today's event and for setting the scene so nicely. Indeed, we are not only facing those challenges or facing the future, but actually actively shaping it. And I think that's a really important message on the vital contribution that the independent automotive aftermarket has in the entire automotive industry. But now, how is it shaping it in practice? This is one of the things that we are going to be seeing in more detail in the study that is going to be presented shortly on the Independent Aftermarket Panorama study produced by Roland Berger. We are going to be seeing the vital contribution of the value chain to the automotive industry in terms of jobs, in terms of innovation, in terms of circular economy effects, and also in terms of consumer welfare, which also has an impact to the European economy and society as a whole. To explain a bit what were some of these key findings, because the time that we have for today's event is limited, I'm delighted to be introducing the principal at Roland Berger, Maximilian Wegner. Welcome.
Hello everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of the key findings of our recent Independent Aftermarket Panorama study that we developed together with FIGEFA and with kind support of Volkan Nikolic After Sales Intelligence. Can you see the slides up front? There we go. All right, good. As Anna mentioned, we'll just give a very, very brief glimpse into the study, given the limited time that we have available. Just starting from the, I don't know what's happening. Starting from the 50,000 feet view, I guess the system wants to skip that slide. In that study, we've identified 4 key areas how the independent aftermarket is contributing to Europe as a whole. Number 1, it is very important for the automotive industry. It is not only the economic contribution to the industry, but also without the independent aftermarket, the whole life cycle ecosystem in the automotive industry would not function as we know it today. The second key area of impact we see in the industrial competitiveness, because in the end, if we do not have an efficient and cost-effective road transportation of all the goods that our industries are producing, a lot of sectors would suffer from the absence of those, and the aftermarket is important for it. The third finding is around the societal cohesion within Europe. Just imagine we have 270 million passenger cars on our road in wider Europe, and without the aftermarket, the mobility and independence of each individual in Europe would likely be somewhat affected. And lastly, the automotive aftermarket is also a direct contributor to achieving the goals set in the EU Green Deal. Now, let's dive into the first topic. I'll just spend a couple minutes per topic just to give you a brief overview. And the first topic is the automotive industry. We believe the aftermarket is very much in a symbiotic relationship with the other actors in the wider automotive industry. Of course, it starts with the vehicle manufacturers that develop new vehicles and bring new vehicles onto the road. However, it's important for them to provide access to the technology in order to enable the independent aftermarket to service those vehicles and complete the promise of the vehicle manufacturers for the longevity and efficient operation of those vehicles. In turn, the independent aftermarket is a significant profit pool, for example, for the automotive tier 1 suppliers. For a typical supplier, the aftermarket often contributes twice as much to the profitability as to the revenue compared to the rest of a business of a tier 1 supplier. And this access to an important profit pool not only allows the tier 1 supplier to finance some of the innovation that is required to underpin the new vehicles, but also allows them to be more competitive and drive the industry forward as a whole. The second aspect with regards to the automotive industry I wanted to highlight is the lens of employment. Oftentimes, many of you will be familiar, the automotive industry is employing right around 13 million employees, but if we look at what we believe is core automotive, that number should be right around the 7 million mark. Within those 7 million employees, we've done a relatively conservative estimation of how many of those employees are part of the automotive aftermarket, and our low end of that estimation is right around 3.2 million employees that are actively contributing to the automotive aftermarket. That does not include, for example, employees that work at the automotive dealerships, etc. If we were to include those, the numbers would probably go up right around 4 or slightly above 4 million employees. If we move on to the industrial competitiveness, and there are multiple factors that contribute to the industrial competitiveness of Europe, I just want to highlight the topic of innovation. We've asked about 380 FIGIFA members with regards to the investment in the innovation that they are taking year to year. And what we are seeing is currently close to 4% of revenues are invested into innovation, and the expectation is that that number will rise north of 5%. This compares to about 2.5% on average for the European Union and highlights what an innovative sector the automotive aftermarket is. And a Japanese OEM, just to give an example. Yeah? And the white areas essentially are areas where there are no OEM associated workshops, right? And if you live in the middle of one of those large white areas, driving to the next service point just takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, and is more costly anyways. If you compare that to the right-hand side, that is the mapping of the independent aftermarket associated garages, and you can really see quite visually how much more efficient and effective servicing in the independent aftermarket is. Now, let's zoom out a little bit. I skipped the topic of sustainability because Warren Espinosa will touch upon that in a minute. Zooming out, what we believe are the key takeaways from our study. Yeah? The aftermarket, and how we like to call it, the life cycle solutions industry for our automotive industry, really has to be thought throughout the entire life cycle, from the early development of the vehicle all the way through usage, repairing, maintenance, and ultimately reusing, repairing, recycling, you name it. And that is an intricate task that requires active participation of all participants, but also the policymakers. Just to give a quick glimpse, for example, vehicles and part manufacturers, when developing new technologies, need to really think about that entire life cycle and making sure that their solutions can be effective in the market. And I think the example of the electric vehicles that we're seeing right now is a crucial, is a good highlight where consumers are quite aware of the challenges of maintaining, repairing, and keeping new technologies, if you will, on the road. If we look at wholesale distributors in their independent aftermarket, they really need to continue to focus on the performance of their logistics and operations, all the while enabling workshops to do their core jobs, which is repairing and maintaining vehicles. Those very workshops face big challenges right now in terms of labor shortage, in terms of generational transfer, but it is important for them to stay open to innovation, particularly on the digital side, because that will help the overall ecosystem to thrive and to continue to function as it should be. And lastly, from policymakers in the European Union, we believe it would be logical to recognize the importance of the independent aftermarket, because without it, the overall ecosystem could not provide the value that we've tried to highlight in our presentation today. With that, once more, allow me to thank again FIGEFA, its board members, the consultants, as well as the FIGEFA members in their active participation, and nonetheless, Volkan Nikolic, After Sales Intelligence, for kindly providing us with some of the data that we needed for the analysis. Thank you very much, and apologies for the technical hiccups.
Thank you very much, Maximilian, for the presentation and for explaining to us the different insights that you've found out through this study. The QR code it popped up just seconds ago, where you can download the complete study. Otherwise, those of you who are present in the room also have a little flyer with the QR code, so you can read it in detail after the event. Now we're going to be discussing some of the findings of this study while putting it also into the perspective of today's policy landscape. So I would like to invite my panelists to join me here on stage, and I will be introducing them in a second. So if I can invite everyone to join me here with me on the stage, and indeed ask for a big round of applause to them. So we have Mark over here, Irena, Nines, Warren, and Lorianne. Excellent. So welcome. Make yourselves comfortable. So great to have all of you here. I would introduce each one of you shortly, and we'll dive straight into our questions. I would like to start just next to me by introducing the head of unit at the European Commission's DG Grow, Mark Niklas. Welcome. With us, we have also the Counselor and Attaché for Industry, Space and Tech at the Polish Permanent Representation to the European Union, Irena Banaczynska. Welcome. Just next to Irena, we have the Managing Director at Grupo Auto Unión Ibérica and also a board member at FIGEFA, Nines García de la Fuente. Welcome. Also with us, we have the CEO of ATR International and also a FIGEFA board member, Warren Espinosa. Welcome. We also have with us the Director General of the FIA, the International Automotive Federation Region 1, Lorianne Creed. Welcome. And joining us online, we also have the CEO of Mahle Arndt France. Welcome. Great that you join us online. So I will start with a question for each one of you, but given the time that we have, we just have about 45 minutes or so of discussion. We should have some time for questions from the audience. So I would like to already invite you to ask any questions that you would have for our panelists through Slido. You will see the QR code popping up very shortly on the screen. There you go. So either you scan the QR code or use the hashtag automotive on slido.com. Also, that includes also those of you joining us in live in the audience from Euractiv's headquarters. And we will try to take as many questions as we can in the time that we have together. So I would then like to start with you, with Mark Niklas, representing the European Commission. It seems that there's a lot of important policy developments ahead, and most notably the Automotive Industrial Action Plan. What can you tell us about it, and what's in it for the independent aftermarket?
Well, first, in one sentence, I would say the Automotive Action Plan, it really aims at ensuring the future of the European automotive industry. You all are aware of the economic importance of the automotive industry, and the study showed the aftermarket's importance in terms of employment. It's really a major part of the whole automotive industry. Also, everybody knows the geopolitical challenges we have in the current moment, the transformation that is going on in the automotive industry towards zero-emission vehicles, towards more connected, more automated vehicles. And so we have a proud history of the automotive industry in Europe. We want to ensure a bright future. And the action plan really is focusing on how to make this a successful transformation. Based very much on innovation, and I'm pleased to see the figures from the aftermarket, the innovativeness of the automotive aftermarket. Because, of course, innovation is essential, and that came very clearly from the Draghi report on the future of competitiveness. Innovation is essential to master these challenges, master the transformation for the zero-emission, connected and autonomous vehicles of the future. So the action plan there looks at, of course, the enabling framework, the regulations for it. We look at how can we stimulate the demand for zero-emission vehicles, be it the infrastructure, the incentive schemes, but also the trust, which was mentioned earlier, also in second-hand vehicles. Of course, the supply chain, battery value chain is a particular challenge these days. But of course, similar chips, microchips, components, electronics, and so on. The skill set for the industry, and of course, the international dimension. Market access, the looming trade war with the US is, of course, a big challenge there. Access to the raw materials, level playing field with China, all of these are the topics. Now, what is in for the aftermarket in general, I would say everybody is really in this transformation process, from the automotive suppliers, the car manufacturers, to the aftermarket. So we always have this whole value chain approach when looking at the automotive industry. So maybe just 3-4 examples concretely very relevant for the automotive aftermarket. One that was also mentioned just in the presentation, repairability of electric vehicles. And the consumers need the trust that they can repair their electric vehicles also if they are in Poland 100 kilometers away from the next authorized dealer from an independent repair workshop. We need to make sure that everybody in the automotive ecosystem can benefit from the economic value of the data from connected vehicles. We will look at the whole impact of the transformation process of the balance of power in the value chain. And this is in the context of the motor vehicle block exemption regulation, for example. And then all the issues around circularity are also highly important for the aftermarket, remanufactured parts using recycled parts, and just a couple of examples of what is really for the aftermarket specific.
Thank you, Mark. You've already touched upon some of the key questions, I think, from today's discussion, ranging from innovation to the question of EVs and repairability, circularity, benefiting from the economic value of data, as you mentioned. These are going to be some of the discussions, one of the discussion topics we'll be touching upon. Now I'd like to go back to our online guest speaker. We have Arne Frans, the CEO of Mahle, one of the main parts manufacturers in Europe. We've been discussing the question of innovation, and it seems that technological changes are happening very rapidly. So how is a company like Mahle participating in such a fast technological changes in vehicle components? And what do you think then is the role that the independent aftermarket plays in this position?
Well, thank you for having me. I think it's debatable whether that change is happening fast and whether it's happening fast enough, because many of the automotive suppliers as well as the OEMs have invested greatly in new technologies around battery electrical and hybrid vehicles. And so with the delay in the ramp up of some of those technologies, of course, we are sometimes in a very difficult situation. And that uncertainty really is driving a lot of complexity and adds on cost. And at the same time, we see huge challenges from the economic downturn and the structural lack of growth in Europe that affects the demand for vehicles. So on the one hand, automotive players, automotive vehicle manufacturers, automotive suppliers have to handle this overlay of structural long-term trends with the short-term challenges of the business cycle. On the other hand, I would like to say that the aftermarket business plays a very important role because it has a stabilizing effect for all the people that are actively participating and promoting what the aftermarket stands for, to provide for clean, safe, and affordable vehicles and clean, safe, and affordable mobility. Mahle has already for a few years now established a long-term strategy that really sets a lot of energy into the battery electrical vehicles and electrified vehicles, which includes plug-in hybrid and range-extended electrical vehicles. We really put a lot of emphasis on our largest business, which is thermal management, which will play an even bigger role for alternative drivetrains. And also we say clearly defossilization, decarbonization, climate protection can only be successful if internal combustion engines, the ones on the road and the new ones to be produced, will be defossilized with green or renewable fuels. That is so important and has been recognized by all other regions, but in the European Union, we are still fighting for this technology neutrality, for the competition of the best ideas for a climate-protected future for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much to Arnd Franz. We will be getting back to some of the key messages that you have already put forward into the discussion. I would like to go from the parts manufacturer to the parts distributors and wholesalers, and this is where Nines García de la Fuente comes in. You represent Grupo Auto Unión Ibérica. I would like to understand from you, how do you think then that parts distributors and the wholesaling side of the sector is evolving in order to meet the demands of the modern workshops of consumers? How are these demands evolving? What can you tell us about that?
Okay, good morning. Thank you for the question and for the opportunity to be talking about such an important topic today. It's a pleasure to be here among esteemed colleagues, policymakers, and industry leaders, talking about the vital role of the independent automotive aftermarket. It's clear that IAM is a pillar of Europe's automotive industry, and we are leading the role and ensuring that the vehicles are being affordable, safe during the entire life cycle of the vehicles. So this is our main purpose. To be comparing with other sectors, workshops currently needs more precise, more connected solutions than even before, and we are. Sorry. The point is that the complexity of modern vehicles with many propulsion systems, with advanced technologies inside of it, and the increasing of connectivity demands a sophisticated and a strong solution in terms of distribution. And you need to be delivered the right part at the right time, with the right price, of course, everywhere in Europe. How we address from Grupo Auto this, we have developed several digital solutions like keynote, our remote diagnostic and predictive maintenance tool. As we were seeing the increasing of connected vehicles, of course, we decided to include it in our value proposition because it was they were needing currently, and we don't have a real access to the data, so we have been using dongles for this solution, and as well using artificial intelligence and algorithms to be able to deliver to the workshops to help them to identify issues earlier, to optimize the repair schedules, and as well to deliver a cost-effective and real consumers-friendly solution. So, but to be clear, the dongles use is not very scalable in terms of efficiency, financially point of view, and operationally. So it's needed a legislation in order to be having access to the data, to the functions, and to the resources to be able to deploy this tool to its own full potential. And as well, we have developing another solution like our GSmart platform. In this platform, we are trying to be delivering all the tools that the workshops would be requiring from us in order to make them both in terms of being efficient, repair, and in an organization as well. And what do we are delivering to them? We are delivering the right part, because this is really important to be fit in the car, the technical information to be doing, the real-time availability, as well if they are dealing with a fleet customer, and we have certain terms and sales conditions, this is included all in one single platform to make their life easier and to be making them more efficient. Added to that, we have linked an artificial intelligence assistant that allows the workshops staff to be ordering, and they could be doing via WhatsApp, via Instagram, or wherever. But to be honest, both are relying on accurate data. And the point is that we need a regulation on this data, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to be repairing the vehicles. And the regulation and the connection, it's crucial to be there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Nines. We will discuss once again the question around data, because indeed it seems critical for the independent aftermarket sector. So now I would like to move to Warren Espinosa. You're the CEO of ATR International, the leading international trade corporation for automotive spare parts based in Germany. I have a question for you, because we've been talking about the question of European competitiveness, also the question of the transition to electric vehicles, defossilization, as Arne Franz put it. What is the role of the independent aftermarket, according to you, in driving this transition? No pun intended with the driving part.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me here to give the ATR global perspective on this market and these important questions. I'd like to talk a little bit about electrification and a little bit about remanufacturing in my answer. First of all, and Mark mentioned it earlier, the independent aftermarket value chain is all about providing trust for people to be able to use the electric vehicle. The European climate and mobility goals are not going to be achieved only if all we do is create a financial support and policy to be able to sell the vehicles and manufacture the vehicles. What we need is we need to have an ability, or we need the consumer and business to have a confidence that they can continue to drive an electric vehicle with the same conditions and the same affordability as they have always had with the combustion engine. And what we're seeing today is, whether we like it or not, electric vehicle downtimes much higher than combustion vehicle downtimes, probably because there's capacity constraints, there is a lack of access to the correct information, and often there's a lack of access to the correct tooling. And so, if I look at the advancement of what is taking place with the vehicles, Europe needs to prioritize the upskilling of the technicians so that we are able to service those vehicles. In addition to that, we also have to think about the long-term cost-effective repairability of those vehicles. All of this to be able to mitigate the low residual values of electric vehicles today, to create a reliable, responsible second-hand market, which once you've got it, actually in its own way will drive the primary market. And so many of our members have invested in training facilities. We've got training facilities, training academies, and we have an ability, as of today, to do this sort of training to technicians in over 20 of the European countries today. And I was trying to do some calculations, but I believe that we've trained over 40,000 technicians recently, and almost 10,000 of those training days has been focused on electric and types of electric capability training. In addition, we have members who have been focusing on developing battery repair capabilities. Now, you can imagine that it's a very complex investment to be able to do, because not all batteries are repairable. And for those that are repairable, getting the information to be able to repair those batteries is hard, and in many cases, it's almost non-existent. And it's critical that we find alternatives to replacement for an aging electric vehicle. There's no question. We also have, I'm pleased to say, we have a number of vehicle manufacturers who are working together with some ATR members and are in the process of writing battery repair protocols. And so all of this is really driving towards creating a trustworthy second-hand market that gives the consumer and the car driver confidence to be able to continue to invest in an electric vehicle. Because we understand that an electric vehicle, or a vehicle, I should say, is probably most people in Europe's second biggest or biggest acquisition they'll make in their life behind a house. Okay, so and I touched on what Nina said. We need access to data, and we need regulation that ensures repairability of the product. And then just very quickly touching on remanufacturing, which is the second part of it, and that is, with the technology advancement of the vehicles, there's high value components that in the vehicle that are now qualifying that they can be reused and repaired. And the EU really should be supporting this area, potentially with financial incentives and maybe with VAT incentives, to promote the reuse and repair of product, and not only support recycling. You know, if we have members who have invested in salvage operations, disassembly operations that are focusing on trying to get the product to be repairable and reused. And one of the barriers we are running into is that there is a VIN lock. I call it a VIN lock, where this high component, these technical components have been coded to certain VIN numbers, and therefore you can't reuse them. And so we need a regulation that's going to allow that to be able to work, because this is how the independent aftermarket can create the support that is necessary to be able to give, and I can't remember who it was, but said the promise from the vehicle manufacturer. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Warren. And I think I can take many things from your introductory statements, but I think something that struck with me as well is the need for the training of our workers to ensure that our trainings keep up with the technological changes, with the need for repairability, the need for circularity. So I think that's an important dimension, the skills dimension, to bring into the discussion as well. Now, I would like to first then give the word to Lorian and then to Irena as a final wrap-up of the discussion. So with you, Lorian, with Thea, you represent the consumer perspective. So how do you think then, from this perspective, the independent aftermarket contributes to affordable, to sustainable mobility across Europe, especially, for instance, in regions where public transport is rather limited and connectivity is rather limited?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. We represent 40 million consumers in Europe and beyond. And of course, in many of the use cases that you were mentioning, consumers are central. Obviously, the independent aftermarket, as shown by the research, is very often the first stop shop to repair, to maintain the vehicles, be it ICE or electric vehicles. So that's very clear. Just for the figures, for everyone to have them in mind as well, you were saying 3.2 million jobs directly linked to the aftermarket, keeping the 270 million vehicles of Europeans on the road. Not to mention that the aftermarket is very often based in Europe itself and will remain so to help the consumers on a day-to-day. When asking, and we did a number of panels when we did our own research looking into what consumers expect from digitalization, when asking consumers, very often they do consider the independent garages as good value as the manufacturer's own brand. They also consider them very often much cheaper. This is one of the elements that comes very often: cheaper, more accessible, and equal value. There are still questions around the warranty of the vehicles in the early stages, where basically consumers tend to go maybe more to the VM network. But generally speaking, there is a high value into the aftermarket from the European consumers in all the surveys we've done recently. Now, on terms of what we're talking about, and I was more onto the digitalization, although obviously electrification is a big part of it. Consumers do expect more than having just a better service because now we're digital. They do expect more than a simple translation of the existing services. Although when we asked and we looked into what is important for you, convenience, price, a quicker repair, and that's all things that the fellow panelists touched upon, are key elements that would convince people to actually switch to another support, let's say. What our members do very often is roadside assistance, a business for which you also need repair. And then the unique selling point of roadside assistance for many is just being able to continue your journey. And just an example, an Austrian example, this is the one I have. In Austria, our members do 660,000 repairs on the roadside a year. 80% of people can actually continue their journey. For that, it's crucial to have access to what spare parts do I need, what repair can I do I need to tow or not? For us, not towing is one of the key selling points of our people. Now, when we look into the consumers and what they're looking at in digitalization, one of the elements that I find quite relevant for the discussion moving forward in terms of value created is who's willing to pay for additional services when it comes to digitalization. And our more recent survey shows only 30% of our sample was willing to pay. Interesting, I find even more, is that within this 30%, only 12% meant actually with money. And I no need to say, 34% thought I will pay with my data. I will give you my data, and in exchange I will get the service. 21% said very much in the YouTube example, in exchange for targeted ads of some sort. So what are the key things that people expect? And this is regardless of the technology. It's better real-time navigation services, which in terms of sustainability could also be helpful. Location of the car, fuel, battery efficiency tracking, and just maybe, and I am aware we don't have a lot of time, but because I find what Warren was saying extremely interesting, when it comes to electric vehicles, indeed, this location of the vehicle, the next charging point is becoming more important. We also see that the development of the second-hand market is extremely important on that. The actual state of health of the battery is one of the key things we need, and the actual high value of the second-hand vehicles in the EV is hampering the uptake from the second-hand market, so I felt this was important. What is interesting, very last one, I know I don't have a lot of time. We asked our drivers in our sample, which was 10 European countries, would you be willing to switch provider? And I believe this is really interesting for the aftermarket. For what reasons would you be willing to switch provider? No big surprise on number one, 62% lower price, I switch. 56% quicker service. So the fact that the people are actually able to identify the parts and have access to the data is key. Remote services, 46%. And the last one, 42% service via the car dashboard, and we're getting back to access to data. Here, the differentiation is we have 42% of a sample saying, I want access through the car dashboard. If you only narrow it to those owning a connected car, this goes up to 58%. So it gets plus 15% in terms of, okay, the more you're connected, the more you expect services directly on your dashboard. No big surprises there. We also very much call for access to data to be able to unlock this innovation potential.
Thank you very much, Lorianne, also for providing these figures that give a very good perspective of indeed the key issues at stake here and what the consumers need. So last but definitely not the least, we normally start with the policymakers. This time we wanted to leave you to tie things together from what we have been discussing. I'm introducing the councillor at the Polish Permanent Representation to the EU, Irena Banaszynska. I wanted to hear from you about the vision of the Polish presidency for the automotive sector and the plans that you've had for also these months of the presidency, and what do you think, based on what we've been hearing, that the independent aftermarket comes in?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you for putting me actually at the end, because I think that the role of the presidency is a bit into translating the needs of the industry and member states into regulations. This is where we step in the very legislative process. But we are in a very interesting moment. The Polish presidency is the first full in the new legislative cycle. And Commission has prepared many interesting documents, groundbreaking documents, I would say, setting the scene for the competitiveness of several industrial sectors, and automotive being one of them, very important for several member states. This discussion is not new. That it's floating in the air. The needs are clear on different stages. So the aftermarket is it's visible as well in the discussion. For the Polish presidency program, we have envisaged additional focus on energy-intensive sectors, chemical, steels, but as well automotive. But this goes as well for the entire trio. So deeper when we continue, there will be most probably more discussion as well on the innovation aspects, which are important for the aftermarket as well. There was a very nice slide before, which actually allows me to highlight that we have 300,000 people in Poland only engaged in the aftermarket. So it is important. Skills is it's an element that is introduced by the legislative authorities in or sectoral acts. So it allows us to have the entire ecosystem covered by the regulation. So this is crucial. And maybe one more message is breaking the silos and leaving the place we are to see the relevant parts. This is how we have as well the possibility to hear about consumers' expectations, upskilling workers, and recycling the entire ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Irena. Indeed, I think that with this conversation, we are breaking the silos and really bringing these different perspectives together and cooperating together. Now, before I start taking questions from the audience, which, as mentioned before, you can post using the QR code in the screen that's going to be appearing shortly, or using slido.com and the hashtag automotive to post your questions. I would like to give some interaction across our panelists, because I think we have many questions on the table, the need for innovation and the speed in which this is required, the questions of defossilization and transition to electric vehicles, the questions of circularity, the questions of access to data. I think Mark Nicholas in particular has quite a big wish list from our different guests. So could you elaborate a little bit on that, and maybe what are the next plans in the horizon for the Commission to maybe tackle some of these key questions?
Well, and the next plan is very clear. We have now 2 weeks ago presented an action plan. Now we need to move to the actions. And there are, I think we have counted them together. If you read the whole text, flagship actions and the rest, you come to kind of 80 actions that will need to be implemented in the next 1.5 years. So we have quite a lot on our table. As a general comment, it's always interesting when you are at events in Brussels where people are asking for more regulation, while the general mood always is Brussels is over-regulating and the Commission is regulating far too much and you should simplify regulations. But more on the substance, I think a very important point from Warren on the skills and also the investments needed. Because this is also what I mentioned earlier, that this transformation affects really the whole value chain. And it's important for everybody in the value chain really to engage in the transformation, because we can enable certain things with regulation, but then you still need to have the skills and the technical capacities to actually use it and be able to repair a battery electric vehicle, which requires really investments and skills. And on skills, just on a side note, the Automotive Action Plan was adopted at the same time as the Union for Skills. So, of course, the skills dimension is huge. But don't expect the kind of Commission to give incentives for the reskilling of the mechanicians. That's a bit going beyond the subsidiarity principle that we could be directly involved there. There's a lot to do really on the reskilling on the national, on the regional level to ensure that all the workforce in the whole value chain really is transformed. On the point on data that has been mentioned by several participants, and which is a long-standing issue for the automotive aftermarket. Of course, we will have the Data Act entering into application in September this year that will give access to the vehicle data on request of the user. And this should really facilitate the life of the automotive aftermarket enormously. And then we'll come also with additional guidance. And there are examples like in France, where the value chain discusses together what is really included in such access to data. So there are important steps coming up also on that direction.
Thank you very much, Mark Niklas. I would like to invite our panelists to respond to one another. Are there any comments that you would like to add, something that you would like to react, something that you maybe disagreed with from what other panelists may have said? Maybe Nines?
Access to data that has been mentioned because it's something that concerns us a lot, and we are really worried about that because never mind how many digital tools and artificial intelligence we are using, if we are not getting access to the data and to the information generated by the vehicle, and as well OE maintenance and repair information, we will be blocked. We don't be getting or achieving our objective of being supporting the workshops, the end consumers to be the cars fitted and repaired on time and in the right proper time, price, and so on.
Yeah, just to support Ina's statement on that. We know the Data Act, and we've been active there. Obviously, we don't think it's sufficient, and we don't think it's the right signal to wait for the implementation of the Data Act to do something else. Our sector has been very... we don't think this will unlock the innovation, which is essentially what society and the rest is waiting for. And from our end, we did a study as well a while ago looking into the actual value that could be generated if 100% of the vehicles were to be connected. And we're looking at 95 billion on the 270 million vehicles in the European Union. The question is, do we want to unlock that? Do we want to share the values between the different players, or do we want to give someone a dominant position, which is at the moment the case?
And maybe following up on that question, what else do you think might be needed then to unlock this innovation, since it seems to be one of the key questions at stake here? I think. Arne, yes, indeed. I didn't know if you were raising the hand or not. The screen is like a little bit cut over there, so I couldn't see properly.
I'll raise my hand.
I
would just want to really support what was said about sector-specific regulation in the area of data. You know, two major points. We've noticed that with a general regulation like we have on the cartel law was not sufficient to protect the competition and level playing field in the independent aftermarket. So the motor vehicle block exemption regulation has been crucial and so important to enable independent and free repair of vehicles. And so the same thing will happen on access to data, I believe, and we believe in the supply industry. And the experience that we've had over the past decade, where suppliers have poured millions and millions into investment in exchange of data, in the end, of course, some OEMs have been very cooperative on exchange of data, but others have not so much. So in the end, if you look at all vehicle brands to be repaired, we only found one or two data points that everyone was willing to share. And that's by far not sufficient to serve the needs of European consumers. We strongly believe that there is a need for a sector-specific regulation on access to data. And also, we believe that we need to make progress on clear cybersecurity rules. There is a need to protect everyone against cybersecurity threats. but we have to find ways how, with clear authorization rules and other rules, we can serve the needs of the repair and service segment for vehicles in Europe.
From the consumer point of view, this is crucial, as we have been seeing in the nice slide. Finally, we were able to see from Maximilian the footprint of garages all over the territory is able to be delivering a nice service to the end consumer. So we have to keep this in mind. If we have no access to data, we won't be able to be repairing. So sorry for repeating myself.
Yeah, and which also, if I can relate then to one of our panelists, we indeed had Poland, as a matter of fact, in one of the slides. So maybe, Irena, what are your thoughts on this question, on unlocking innovation? What do you think is needed in terms of policies from a Polish perspective? What do you think might be missing here still for the automotive sector as a whole?
I will return to the sentence I used before, breaking the silos, is because we all discuss in groups, we are all attached to certain structures. Like we deal with competitiveness in our, I'm responsible for the working group on industry, but we fall under the Council of Competitiveness, and we have different colleagues responsible for transport and different colleagues responsible for innovation. It's all about discussing and understanding that what is important is the entire value chain. Each phase is crucial, and the cooperation as well. So actions taken in other regulations impact other spheres that build into competitiveness on the entire value chain.
Thank you very much. I would like to maybe start already getting some of the questions from the audience, and I think related once again to the question of competitiveness. At the end of the day, if we look at the European economies, a large majority is SMEs. And there is one question to Mark Niklas specifically, but I think I would like to also open it to other panelists as well, which is how can SMEs, the backbone of the European economy and society, be supported to drive further innovation in digital transformation in the aftermarket? Where do you see, is there any particular support foreseen for SMEs?
And again, it's don't expect too much from central policymakers to help individual SMEs on the ground in the digital transformation. Those support programs normally are on a national or even regional level. And of course, the digital transformation of the value chain is a crucial issue for the competitiveness of Europe. There are several SME support programs, but don't expect a specific EU support program for the digital transformation of SMEs in the automotive aftermarket. That would go beyond our competences.
Any additional comments on this question in particular? Then I have a question for, there was one for Warren. Isn't the fundamental issue access to reliable, timely, and affordable technical information, whether classical RMI or in-vehicle data? This is all I have from the question.
It's a little bit of what I was saying earlier. To be able to develop repair capabilities on developing technologies, you need access to the repair information. You need access to all RMI. You need access to in-vehicle data. You know, I think that I was going to say earlier, under digitization, what we need as an independent aftermarket is unrestricted, unfettered access to this data, so that we can create user cases which will ultimately be for the benefit of the consumer and the car driver, and in my opinion, also in support of the original vehicle manufacturer to begin with. So I think it's about getting access to that, and also getting it at a reasonable price. Because it's only one issue saying, can you get access to it? But if you have to pay exorbitant fees to be able to use it, it kind of takes away from, you know. So.
Yeah, so Lorraine
Sorry, just very briefly to back it on, I think the aftermarket and the roadside assistance that we have, they are the directly customer-facing, consumer-facing organization. They can identify issue quite early on and identify potential solution that add value. but they can't transform that into a product until they actually get sufficient access to the resources. So it's very vital for innovation to have this certainty that this data will be available in the future as well. You don't develop a product until you actually are sure that you can sell it in the future. And that's where I do understand that a lot of people are saying less Europe, but that's where in this case the framework is direly needed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Mark, please.
Yeah, to complement, also to avoid confusion, I think we need to differentiate a bit. And on the one hand, for the real repairability of the vehicle, there is an obligation for the manufacturers to provide access to repair and maintenance information, and we are currently updating these rules to take into account battery electric vehicles, also these new automation features, so that these vehicles are repairable by independent operators. So that's, in a way, you don't even need the Data Act for that. That's a requirement that exists already. The other aspect is these kind of innovative services, and there indeed we will need to see if the Data Act is enough to allow us such innovative mobility services from independent operators, or if more is needed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any additional comments to this? I don't know if Arnd's raising his hand. No. All right. Then, otherwise, because you've mentioned the question about automation, and I had one question for Arnd. In fact, what do you think about the European Connected and Autonomous Vehicle Alliance and the role of the independent aftermarket?
Well, I think first of all, we have to really notice that that we're in the global competition for the future of mobility. Everyone realizes there are so many things that have happened in China. That's why I believe that Europe really has to activate its competencies, its capabilities, its technologies, and really drive forward such an alliance. In the end, I believe there is still a lot of things to be done on road safety, on the affordability of cars. We discussed a lot about the digital and data-related topics. In the end, the content of electrical and electronic and digital features on the cars is going to tremendously increase, and we see this already on every kind of powertrain. And therefore, I believe, as it was said before, working across sectors, working across the silos is so important. And I think Europe is realizing this more and more. So we would certainly fully embrace and support such an initiative. And I believe the vehicle parts manufacturers are really a key element in this, as they connect the vehicle manufacturers with the independent workshops. So the whole value chain is coming together in a way in the spare parts manufacturers and the parts manufacturers in the automotive supply industry.
Thank you, Arnd. Well, we are getting to the end of our discussion, so I would like to give each one of our panelists the opportunity to give some final comments, a final remark, and what's perhaps one key message that you would want the audience to get out from this event when we leave the door. Maybe we could start from the opposite way that we started. So maybe we can start with Irena and then all the way back to Mark.
Thank you. My last comment will be that the business needs to continue to raise the issues as political as possible. Last week, we held the Competitiveness Council, where automotive sector, the future of it, was one of the points on the agenda. Good discussion, huge interest from countries where automotive sector is important, from countries where aftermarket consists of SMEs. They were as well very vocal. So we have to continue, and we are looking forward to pick up the work when it's given to the member states.
Thanks a lot, Irena. Now to Lauriane.
Yes. While we understand that the focus of the current Commission is very much on the industry and the SME, we do believe that these markets necessitate the consumers as well, and innovation is one way to make Europe the next leader in many of these things. So investing in products that consumers want and that the aftermarket and others are willing to deliver is a clever move.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
I think I think I'd like to just talk a little bit briefly about recycling. The Industrial Action Plan talks about having some support and policy regulation around recycling, and I would argue that repairing a battery is arguably cheaper and greener than recycling a battery, and so potentially what we should ask is for policymakers not to forget that recycling is not necessarily the whole ballgame. It's also taking into account reusing and repairing, and maybe we should spend some focus on that.
Indeed, thank you. Now, Nines?
Reinforcing Warren, we are the Independent Automotive Aftermarket. We are the ones contributing a lot to the sustainability in another way. And something to be sustainable should be profitable as well. So don't keep the focus as well. We have been some numbers about how many employees, all the industry around the automotive industry as well. So we need the support from the policymakers, from the all the statements in order to let us develop our work and to continue creating more innovative digital solutions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nines. Arnd, your turn.
Yeah, I would thank you. I would offer two aspects. One is really the European automakers and also the European suppliers in many cases are global players. We compete worldwide, and therefore I believe this stressed term of technology neutrality is not only important to find an answer how we can compete successfully in battery electrical vehicles, but if we stop doing the other things like plug-in hybrids and internal combustion engines here in Europe, we will also have a worse position in the global competitiveness scene. So that's the picture for the big companies, but I believe equally even more important is the picture on the SMEs. And especially in the independent aftermarket, on the service and the repair level, we serve thousands and thousands, maybe 300,000 independent workshops across Europe together as an industry and as the distributors and the wholesalers and the retailers. And we have a responsibility for all those people who stay in business. And so I believe access to data is one thing, but also taking responsible decisions on what's the future of powertrain. I believe there is more than a business responsibility. There's a social responsibility also that we have in front of those family businesses.
Thank you, Arnd. And last but not least, Mark.
Well, the Automotive Action Plan that we presented 2 weeks ago was based on a very intense dialogue with the whole value chain, and several people here in the room participated, or your organizations participated. So the independent aftermarket is listened to in this context, and of course this dialogue is not stopping with the Automotive Action Plan. It will continue with various thematic sessions and with the high-level dialogue by President von der Leyen. So we're looking forward to continuing the dialogue with all stakeholders to make sure that the transformation works for all the businesses and the consumers in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Mark. And I think with this conversation, indeed, we have underlined the importance of the independent automotive aftermarket in the future of Europe's competitiveness. And I think what's been also crucial is what Irena was mentioning before, the need to break the silos and to really get together and discuss these challenges and take action together, which, as Mark said, the dialogue will continue. I think this is with the action plan released so recently, this is just the beginning. So thank you very much to our panelists who have joined us today. Can I ask for a big round of applause for all of them? Thanks a lot. If I may invite all of you to go back to with the audience, we will go on with the final part of our program. I believe this has been a really insightful conversation, and there's still so much more that we could have discussed today. But instead of hearing from me in terms of the final comments, final remarks, and the summary of today's event, I would like to invite the Chief Executive at FIGIFA, Sylvia Goodson. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Indeed, I can only but echo. It was a very colorful discussion with the mentioning of a lot of aspects, and without indeed reiterating the whole discussion, I would like to refer to the posters which we have designed and which you find outside, which says, "We keep Europe mobile, we keep Europe moving." And I can only but say we are together as a value chain and a wonderful pit stop crew who indeed all together as operators contribute to the competitiveness of the automotive industry as a whole, to jobs, innovation, circular economy, consumer welfare. I can only but call upon indeed policymakers who are here today to keep us in mind, and I think that was a key learning, that indeed the entire value chain should be considered, and the colorful operators here, and that indeed with the European Parliament you are heading towards a resolution. In Council, indeed, also perhaps we will also continue our work, information work, to break up the silos and to create awareness of this important supply chain which we have here. And of course, with the Commission, we would be, of course, like to be party, obviously, in the to the implementation of the Automotive Action Plan. And indeed, we can only but concur. There are many points where we would see a major contribution from our side, because we would like to make it happen. We would like to be a proactive partner in the journey to indeed a Europe which is on the way to on the climate and mobility goals of the EU. We would like to be continuously a strong partner. You can count on us. And with these words, I would like to thank you all for having been with us, and especially also the panelists for indeed the very colorful, insightful discussion you have been providing to us, and with all the inspirations we take back to our work. Thank you very much, and we invite you, of course, to lunch outside. Thank you.